Hey everybody, my name is Justin. I'm one of the co-founders of Flipwise. I'm joined here by the other co-founder, Michael.
Hi, everybody.
We are doing a podcast here. We have a Flipwise YouTube channel that we really have not used very much. There's like one video on there, I think. We have some like tutorial videos on there as well, but we thought we wanted to use it more as a way to communicate out to Flipwise users, let y'all know what we're working on and what we've recently released, and give you all a little bit of a behind the scenes of the ongoing development of Flipwise. And so that's what we're planning on doing with this podcast. At some frequency, we will come here and we will give you information and stories about Flipwise. And I think we're also going to answer some viewer questions. We've got a lot of questions sort of built up over time of people asking, whether that's in our Discord channel or on YouTube itself, about why we do certain things a certain way in Flipwise, or whether we're thinking about some other feature. And so we'll go through some of those user questions as well. I think we had started off though, just sort of talking about the origin story here. Like, how did Flipwise come to be? When did we start working on this officially? Michael, do you remember?
Well, I know we just hit the year anniversary of starting development full-time. We started that like just after July 4th weekend last year, but you and I started talking. We started kind of doing some planning before that, like a few months before that. And then even like, I don't know, going back almost a year before that, we first started talking and then kind of stopped talking. And I know you changed jobs and I changed jobs. And then we kind of came back together, kind of spring of last year.
Right. So about a year, around this time, I guess like at various points over the last several years, we had talked about working on a project together without any sort of like idea. So Michael and I originally met, when was that? 2011, I think, is when we first met in Washington, D.C. You were living there. You were working for a company that sort of merged with the startup that I was working for. And so we kind of joined the same small team. You are and have been an engineer. I was always like a product manager type person, and we joined the same small team. There was like 5 or 6 people on that team, and we worked together for like a decade up until, what was that, 2022? Something like that.
Yeah.
So like 12, 13 years we worked together on this stuff. And so after that, we'd sort of off and on talked about working on a project, not even in the reselling space necessarily, but just wanting to work together again. And about this time last year, maybe 14 months ago, we started talking more like, what could we do? What could we work on? And I've always been reselling, selling stuff on eBay, and I've kept spreadsheets to track all of my expenses and all of my cost of goods, and sort of analyze the performance of my business. And spreadsheets were always just like, brittle and annoying to work with and required a bunch of manual data entry. And so one of the ideas we narrowed in on was, building a sort of application that could automate all of that for us. And so that's sort of how we came to figure out Flipwise, or came to think of Flipwise. But there was like some other ideas, even in the reselling space we had. Do you remember what those were?
It's all kind of a blur now, but my memory is that when we first started talking, like you were really keen on focusing on more on like the kind of research tool, like kind of a pricing estimation tool. And you were really excited about that prospect and kind of got me fired up about it too. And so we explored that for quite a bit before we changed course, as I recall.
Yeah, that's right. It was definitely on the like sourcing side of reselling, because there's like no good tools out there still to this day for like eBay resellers when they're out there sourcing new inventory. It's basically the eBay app, and that's it. And that's because eBay like locked down all of their APIs with regards to access to sales data. And so if you like sell on Amazon, there's tons of good apps out there that help you like scan barcodes and quickly get, sell-through rates and all these different things. But really the only app that you can do that with now is the eBay app, because they've sort of cut access to that stuff to third-party developers. And so that's something we discovered as a part of that process. Is I really wanted to build, a sort of research tool that you could go out in the field with, and like, with the same accuracy as something like Google Lens, be able to take photos, and instead of Google Lens just giving you Google search results, have it actually query the eBay API and give you active listings and sold listings and sell-through rate and average sale price. But then we learned that eBay restricts a lot of that access to a lot of that data. So we're like, okay, well, we could probably get that data in legally or questionably ethical ways, like scraping or something, or we could just sort of pivot and try something else. And we definitely just wanted to like not do things that would anger the eBay gods, and so landed on
I mean,
that.
it was tempting. It was one of those moments. Sometimes you have an idea, it feels like a really great idea, and then you start looking around to see if there are any competitors.
Yeah.
And there really weren't too many. And so it's one of those moments where like, okay, are we just the first out of the gate? Are we the only people who've thought about this? Or is there some, specific reason that there aren't other apps that already do this? And then we eventually realized, okay, eBay just does not want you to be using their data in this way. But we explored like some of those ethically, legally gray area approaches. I remember reading like different like blog posts on like legal blogs about like scraping and like, okay, you're scraping publicly available data. Is that okay? And it's kind of a controversial subject, it seemed like, and we couldn't find a clear answer. And then, we just eventually said, okay, we don't want to build our business on a house of cards here. So let's take a step back and see if we can do something else in this space.
Yeah. And in retrospect, like I'm super glad that worked out. I was bummed when we sort of decided that wasn't going to be the direction that we took, because I still think that there's a huge opportunity in that space. I wish, if eBay was like not going to allow third-party developers to work on, sourcing related tools, fine, but I wish that they would invest more in their tools in that department. But I remember just being bummed about it. But like in retrospect, I'm so glad that we ended up taking the direction that we did with Flipwise, which was to instead sort of start with a foundation of data management, of business data management, and make it super easy to ingest all of your data from eBay, and make it super easy to, input all of your acquisition data and organize your inventory and all that. Because it builds such a nice foundation for what we want to build in the future, that if we would have started so if we would have taken such a narrow path with sourcing, like we just wouldn't have had a good foundation. Because if eBay changes its tune later, we could very easily kind of bolt on sourcing onto the foundation of Flipwise as it exists today. So super glad with that. What was frustrating at first, but ended up being a pretty good thing.
Yeah, no, me too. And I think something about the kind of sourcing app felt, I don't know, I think we felt like we could make something magical feeling there, and there's something just very, very appealing about the idea that you could show that to any reseller and you knew they would just fall all over themselves to sign up for it. And when we were talking about what we ended up doing, ultimately this kind of more bookkeeping, inventory management oriented idea, I think we knew it would be, we could build something useful because we knew that you needed a tool like that. You'd have been like kind of like scraping your own kind of tools like that together with spreadsheets and Airtable over the years. But I do think there's just something that feels it felt less exciting, it felt like we'd have to make this thing really good and really solve some real problems for people to kind of like catch their interest. So I'm glad, like you are, that we decided to focus on that. And once you get into the details of execution, you find ways to kind of make it feel like a compelling, attractive product. But on the surface, I don't know, it felt like a harder sell than kind of a sourcing tool. Yeah,
for sure. And I think, it was really interesting because we went into beta with Flipwise in November. And so we started development on it you started full-time development on this around this time last year.
Yeah.
And then we went into beta with our first set of users on, I think it was November 6th. Does that sound right?
Yep.
Yeah. So November 6th. So that was 6-ish months of pre-development, pre-beta development. But up until that point, nobody had really seen what we had built. I knew in looking at it and, helping to design it and, determine what we were building, I knew that we were building a compelling product, but you just never know until you actually get other people in there. And I think it was pretty quick, into the beta that it was clear, one, that we needed to do more work, that we were just missing some core functionality that people were expecting. But it was also clear at the same time that we had built a compelling product, pretty quick out of the gate. It was clear that people were hungry for this type of solution, and that there, although there's competitors out there, not really exactly like how we do it. And so that was like the first time, that I realized like, okay, like we're actually onto something here. This is something that's interesting to people. And so that was really fun to figure out, because you never know.
You never know. Yeah. That's kind of been, I don't know, one of the interesting, most challenging parts of this whole adventure over the last year is just kind of the you have to kind of put your head down and do the work, even though you really don't know what you're working towards. If you're working towards something that ultimately nobody will care about, or if it'll be a big thing or somewhere in between, you just kind of have to put your head down and keep going until you get to that moment where you can find out. But I think we kind of knew. I don't know. It always feels like a pretty safe bet if you're building a product for yourself, or we were building a product for you. And so we kind of just kept the faith that if we built something that you, as an experienced reseller, find really useful, and built something that was kind of opinionated around the workflows that, you had kind of built up for yourself over the years. I don't know. We just kind of had faith that if we did that and followed that approach, the chances are it would resonate with other people, and other people would find it useful as well.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think I've, time and time again in my own sort of product development course is just like trusting that if it's like useful for you, that you're not alone. There's a lot of people out there who probably have the same types of problems. And that was really obvious through YouTube. And so I'd been making YouTube videos for several years, on and off, never very seriously. But around the time that we started development on this, I'm like, I should kick that back up. And the idea was that'll help us find other people that are interested in helping to beta test. And I remember, you said specifically, when we opened the beta, you were going to be excited if we had a half dozen people helping us out. It's not. Yeah. I think maybe you said 5 people. Was that the number?
Yeah, it's funny to think back on. But yeah, I mean, because we were just so hungry, so eager to have other people use it. And we were like, man, if we just had 5 people in here, and we got some feedback from 5 real humans, that we would have known so much more at that point than what we knew at the time. Yeah. And so that would have felt like that would have been useful and helpful, and felt like a win to get a few people using it.
We had a few more than 5.
Yeah.
I don't remember. Do you remember how many people we ended with the beta? I think it was 1,300 people.
Yeah. That's right.
We're in there. So
a
few more than 5. And that doing the beta that way was just invaluable. The amount of feedback that we got, because, I always knew that selling on eBay is very unopinionated, I guess is the best way to put it, where there's just so many different things you can sell and so many different business types that are on there. And you could be a one person selling one thing a month, or you can be selling 1,000 things a day, and everywhere in between. And so there's all just different ways that people use eBay. But it wasn't really until we started that beta until I realized it's really varied. And so getting a lot of people in there who had a lot of different workflows and a lot of different expectations, not that we set out to meet all of those, but it was eye-opening, there's so many different ways. And I think that influenced how we started to build Flipwise in particular, because we always sort of wanted to build an opinionated product. We didn't want to build something that was so flexible, like a spreadsheet, for example, because you lose the sort of essence of what the product is if you do that. And so we wanted to be opinionated about, no, there's a million ways you can do it, but this is the way that we're going to promote. We think that this is going to be the most serving, or best serve the most people, which is really finding people that sold kind of like I did. But yeah, through the YouTube channel, that was a whole other just surprise. Again, I started the YouTube channel or I didn't start the YouTube channel. I sort of restarted the YouTube channel, hoping to, build a small community of, 5 or 10 people. I don't know, just to who were interested and who could help us out. But YouTube took off very quickly and unexpectedly, and to where it is today, I just can't believe what has happened over the course of a year on YouTube. It's unbelievable, the support that we've gotten there. Just super cool and super unexpected. We just really weren't planning for that, and it's been a very weird experience.
Yeah. I mean, and I think we both feel very fortunate that it worked out that way as well. It's interesting to think about what the last year would have been like had you not had the amazing success you had on YouTube, and what it would have looked like to get feedback on the product and everything. It would have been a totally different outcome. But I remember when we first started talking about that, you were like, oh, I'm going to try to start to build an audience on YouTube, get my YouTube channel going again. And you were showing me your existing channel, and you had a few videos up there, but I think you had one video, I think, that had 5,000 or so views.
I don't even think it was that much. I think I had one that was maybe 1,000.
Maybe 1,000. But there were several videos where just few hundred views. And so I was like, okay. I mean, it seems like a tall order to grow a big YouTube channel, but go for it. It's worth a shot. But yeah, I definitely had no idea at all that it would be as big as you managed to grow it.
Totally crazy. Yeah, totally unexpected. And it's just, very weird. I actually don't like being on camera that much. And so it's a little weird to have that be like a core part of my life now, is sitting in front of a camera, much like I am right now. So it's definitely been a learning experience for me, and it's fun though. I enjoy it. And like you said, like invaluable and just so great. Like the community we've built is just amazing. Like I check into Discord, multiple times per day, and, the amount of people helping each other with their reselling challenges in that Discord channel is just amazing. I love to see it. It's super cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole nother thing we could talk about, just because that wasn't a given either, that we would start a Discord server and have like a bustling community. Like, I remember we talked a lot early on about should we do a forum? If we do a forum, should it be built into the app? Or we were looking at different forum software options.
That's right.
I guess we're jumping around here, but yeah, that is such a cool thing that has happened as well. And I do think like the tone that you set on the YouTube channel, just around being helpful and kind of no bullshit, kind of your kind of humble approach. I feel like that has kind of extended into the community that we've built up in Discord as well, where everybody in there is just awesome, and they're there to help each other out, and nobody's mean or rude. It's just this really positive. I mean, people are excited for each other when they when they make a nice sale or make a good buy. So it's really another kind of positive, unexpected, fun thing about this as well as that community.
I totally forgot about that. Discord was like a last minute decision when we were launching the beta. Like, you're right. We were just gonna like select some off the shelf forum software and bolt it into the app, because we did want people to be able to communicate with us and with each other about the app and help each other and do all that. The community was definitely an idea from the beginning.
Yeah.
But the tool to build that community was not, and it was undecided. And it was almost like, because it was easy, maybe Discord, we were like, well, we don't have to build anything, we don't have to integrate anything. But it turns out that was a really good decision, I think. Just having that sort of real-time chat environment for not only for us as app developers to like get feedback from the community immediately and be able to sort of shape the product based on feedback coming from our community in Discord. That was invaluable, but also just the ongoing way that community has grown and they've helped each other has been super cool.
Absolutely. It's like just a valuable part of being a part of Flipwise is that community. Yeah. And it's any kind of it seems like being a reseller, it's kind of like an entrepreneurial effort that you're often doing by yourself. And so the idea that you'd have, I've got peers in here, they're going through all the same stuff. I just think having that community of peers who are trying to accomplish the same thing that you are can just be motivating, and it just makes it feel less lonely, I imagine, for somebody, especially for somebody just getting started.
Yeah, that's very true. I haven't really considered that, but it's like you hear that a lot from resellers who do this full time, is it can be isolating. You're not working in an office, which for a lot of people, that's why they do it. But over time, you're just not interacting with a whole lot of people other than like cashiers at a thrift store. And so having that community to do that. And as you said, like when you're a new reseller, like having access to people who have answers, that are hard to find, because eBay is not an easy platform to sell on by any means. And so it's been really cool to have that forum to help, not only help directly, but have people help each other too. So pretty cool. Totally. Well, let's talk through some of the stuff that we've released on Flipwise recently. We're in a constant state of development on Flipwise. Like we're always working on it and always releasing stuff. Like even if it's not stuff that y'all see as users, under the hood, there's releases going out, practically every day. And, a lot of that is user facing, and we've had a lot of releases, since our public launch. We went out of beta in November, and then we launched, was it 7 months exactly or 6 months exactly? It was in April 6th, I think is the date. Is that right?
Yeah.
Does that sound right to you?
That's right. April 6th. Okay. So,
but anyway.
5 months. 5 months.
Yeah. 5 months from now? Is that correct?
No, I'm sorry. 5 months from when we opened the beta.
Okay. I was I mean, I would have believed the other thing. Time is a weird thing at this point. But yeah, in a constant state of development. So we're always just, I might be working on the sort of like product design and ideas for a handful of features that are coming up while you're in development of, other features that are further along in the phase. And so there's always like, I don't know, a mix of 4 or 5 big features that are in various stages of development. And we're, releasing this stuff, on a very constant basis. But we've done some releases lately. I got a list here. I'm going to look through some of this stuff just so y'all that are listening may not know that all these changes have happened. That's one thing we need to improve, I think, is like our outreach to our users about what has changed. Like one of the things I want to do soon is like put features, put functionality in Flipwise itself that allows us to communicate to our users, through like a messaging system or notification system that says, hey, we just released something. Here's what it looks like. Because right now, like the only way you really get those updates are if you're in Discord, and that's like a very small fraction of the people that are using the platform. So anyway, this podcast will also act as a way to learn about the things that we've released, and I'm going to talk about a few of those things now. Actually going to go in the reverse order, weirdly. So Michael, if you're looking at the list I am, it's going to sound weird. Custom date filtering on index and insights. And so the insight screen of Flipwise is where you sort of get an overview, a visualization of the performance of your business. And historically, or like prior to doing this work, you had some options to filter that data by dates, and it was like, here's the last week's date, and you could change that to month to date and last month and this month and year to date. We had a handful of like preset filters, and this work introduced the ability to do like custom date filtering on that screen, so you can literally select any date and have the insight screen show data based on that date. And that same functionality was also applied to the index screens. So I use that term quite a bit when I'm talking in Discord and other places, just to mean like the list of all of your items. So like the active index, that's all your list of all your active listings. Your sold index, list of all your sold items. Both of those have those date filters as well on them. And that's something we released probably a month and a half ago. Does that sound right?
Yep. Also,
like on those index screens, we had like the headers, so the tops of the index screens where it says like this column is the title, this column is the ROI, this column is the cost. Those things did not used to be sticky, so when you would scroll, they would go away and you couldn't see which column was which. And so we made those sticky, which was a hotly requested item. Glad to have done that. Much easier to read there. We had also, this one was a recent release. Maybe you could talk about this, Michael, just the sort of the trio of deleting products, marking as donated, marking as damaged. Like, talk a little bit about those.
Right. So with this trio of features, you can do basically like take your products in your inventory and move them into like 3 different statuses. One is you can mark a product as damaged. Another is you can mark a product as donated. And with those 2 statuses, the idea there is that you want to kind of keep track of the fact that you did that, because that's if you have some kind of like money spent, some money invested into that product, you want that to be kind of like captured in your financial data, so that can be like reflected in your tax return at the end of the year as an expense, something kind of reduce your taxable income. And so the idea of like kind of donating, marking a product as donated, marking a product as damaged, and like capturing that kind of history of that status change within Flipwise, ensures that you kind of capture that all that valuable financial data. And then you can delete products as well. And so, pretty basic, but if you delete a product, it moves kind of like to your deleted sort of recycling bin, and it sits there for 30 days, and then it'll eventually be permanently deleted altogether. If you change your mind, you can undelete it. Pretty basic stuff.
Yeah. I'm actually surprised we made it as long as we did without having a delete function. It's like, honestly, was not that hot of a request, and so we didn't really prioritize it, but it makes sense. You want to be able to get things out of there. But that's like, it actually speaks like we're very eBay centric, obviously, and we treat eBay as the source of truth for a lot of things. And so, for example, we don't let you delete an item from your inventory in Flipwise if it's still active on eBay. Like, we'll prevent you from doing that. We'll tell you, like, nope, you can't do that until you actually end the listing on eBay. That's to just reinforce that sort of source of truth being eBay there. Same go, like, there's other rules, like for donated and damaged as well. Like, I think you can't donate or mark as damaged if they're active on eBay as well, I think, unless it's a multi-quantity. Is that right? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yes, that's correct. And then similarly, you can't, we don't let you delete a product if there are any sales associated with it, because again, we don't want to like destroy valuable financial data. So as soon as before a product's sold, you can delete it and pretend like it never existed. But if there's any kind of sales data associated with it, then we force you to keep that around forever.
Yeah, and that's interesting because that, it has come up at least once where somebody wanted to, and we've had users who join and are like, well, there's just old stuff in there that I don't care about anymore. And, if it's old sold data, like we just have specifically said, well, you can't delete that. And it's interesting because like, it makes sense why we don't want you to delete it because, it's important to have that information for tax purposes, for example. Anytime there's like sales data associated with it, it's going to impact, your tax situation. But ultimately, like, I can see users maybe being like, well, I don't care. It's my data. Let me get rid of it. And so I could see us maybe in the future being like, okay, well, maybe we'll let you do that, but put up a big warning or something like that. But yeah, for now, you can't delete anything that has sales data associated with it, which I think is the right move ultimately.
Yeah. It feels like that's kind of been our approach generally, like to err on the side of kind of keeping things locked down and protecting users from maybe inadvertently making a bad decision. Yeah. And then, you hear too many complaints about it or too many use cases where you're like, okay, well, I can see why you would want to delete it, or I can see why you'd want to do this thing that we've forbidden you from doing. Then we kind of convince ourselves that, okay, maybe that's worth doing.
Yeah, and actually when we've done that several times, I mean, there's one feature I can think of in particular where we would not let you record sale or shipping cost information like until Flipwise knew for sure that it was not going to automatically ingest the shipping costs. Like that's the way that the product worked originally. Yeah. But we started getting a lot of feedback saying like, well, I know that it's not going to ingest it because I bought it through Pirate Ship. And so, but I have to sit here and wait for 5 minutes for Flipwise to figure out that I bought it through Pirate Ship so that I can enter it. It's like, okay, well, yeah, like that decision that we made originally is good in theory, but in practice, it doesn't make sense for a very good reason. So we reverse course on that and, allowed you to enter in your shipping costs immediately so that for folks buying the shipping labels outside of eBay, they can hop in and record those costs immediately. So that's like the benefit of having that beta group and having that Discord group. It wouldn't be a podcast without my dogs barking in the background too. So I'm surprised they haven't been barking more than this. Let's see what else we did. We released some you can now leave notes on products, which is nice. So you can just little notes field. You can write whatever you want on an item in your inventory. We did just get a request to make those searchable. So we should make those searchable as well. That's a good idea to do that. Makes sense. So
I saw that. Very good idea.
Yeah. Cool. Let's hop into some viewer questions. We got a handful of them here. I think it might be fun to do this. If y'all have questions for us, feel free to leave them in the comment section down below. Email us at support@flipwise.app. Come into Discord. Lots of ways to get a hold of us. But here, it looks like Tyler asks, is Flipwise retroactive? Will it go back and calculate the first 6 months of the year if I buy in June?
The answer is yes to that question. So what happens is when you sign up for Flipwise, we kind of do an initial one-time import of all the data from your store. And as I was saying earlier, there's a lot of different APIs that eBay provides that we use to get all that data. And so for order data and for like transaction data, we can get 2 years worth of history from, basically. So from the point that you sign up for Flipwise, we can go back 2 years and get 2 years worth of orders. And then we fetch your transactions as well because there's certain like kind of very specific data that's available in transactions that's not attached to the order object in eBay. Like, if you've purchased shipping labels through eBay, that comes through the transactions. Or if you've gotten like a premium ad fee on a listing, that comes through transactions. So we can get all that data going back 2 years. And then with listings, it's a little bit more complicated where we can get all of your active listings. All those are available. But for a listing that's like ended or completed, we can only go back 90 days. That's all that eBay provides, 90 days worth of data. And that includes sold listings as well, which kind of makes it tricky because, you could have an order that's 2 years old that we are able to fetch, but the listing associated with that order is not available to us. And so we end up like reconstructing the listing as best we can using metadata that is available on the order. So we know what the listing title was. We know what the SKU was. That's available in the order, but like we don't have the photo. We don't have can't get any of the photos for those very old listings. We don't know when the listing started. We don't know if it was a relist, that sort of thing. So that's kind of like just one constraint of the eBay APIs we've had to kind of live with. So when you sign up for Flipwise, you have 2 years worth of your data there. But if you look at kind of very old orders, the financial data will all be 100% correct, but there's like a kind of a reduced set of data available about the listing for those kind of old orders.
Yeah. Yeah, it is pretty weird. And I mean, it's not the end of the world, I guess. Like, so that's why if you log into Flipwise after your import and you see, sold listings, missing photos, for example, that's because it's older than 90 days from the time of your import, and eBay does not make that available via the API, and so we just can't ingest it. But not too bad, but it would be nice if we had that. But Flipwise will retain the photos going forward. So even though they'll expire from eBay after 90 days, they'll stay in Flipwise forever. So good question here.
Very good question.
Here's the next one here. This is from Subichaco. Looks like that's what that says. I'm interested in Flipwise. Is there a good end-of-year accounting report that shows how much inventory I had left over at the end of the year, buy costs, eBay fees? If so, this is an eBay dream. So reporting, this is a good question. I wanted to talk about this one because this is an area where we're going to make a ton of feature enhancements. We really when we launched with what I would consider like the most basic reporting functionality necessary to make sure that you can do your taxes, knowing that we needed to add a lot more stuff. And so right now, you can export your data at any time, any slice of your data at any slice of time we make available. And so that has everything you need technically for tax purposes in it. But what we do want to do is go back and add a lot of more advanced reporting functionality that sort of presents that data in a format that's more familiar to people that run small businesses like this. So things like, profit and loss statements, for example, or end of year reports that incorporate not only, inventory costs and fees and all that stuff, but stuff from, general business expenses from your ledger and all sorts of things like that, and compiles it all into one. So you have like a full picture of the performance of your business at any slice of time. And so right now it's, the question is there a good end-of-year accounting report that shows how much inventory I had left over at the end of the year, but buy costs and eBay fees? Technically, yes. I mean, technically, you can get at all that stuff through the export functionality. But I think what this user is asking is like, is there a better, presentation of that in a sort of more reporty way? And that's coming soon. So that's a good question, though.
Yep.
Let's see here. What other questions do we have? How about from Andrew here? I use Flipwise all the time and like it a lot. Sweet. A new feature idea would be to integrate best offer. It would be cool to be able to make a decision on best offers based on data within the app. Like if you accept an offer for X, you will make Y. What do you think? Yes, this is an area where we want to do a lot of work on. Do you remember, Michael, like capabilities of eBay API around best offers? I know that we can get a lot of information. I don't know, how much do you remember there?
I don't remember much. We did look into it a lot at one point, but it's been a while since we dug into that.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think there's a lot that we can do here that would improve on the best offer experience. I think one of the biggest challenges on eBay now is if you get a best offer, you don't get that offer in the context of your own costs, and so it's hard to understand whether you want to accept that offer because you don't know like how much money would I make on it. And so if Flipwise was receiving best offer information as well and in real time providing you with like, hey, if you accept this offer, your net return will be this based on all of the data that we have stored that eBay doesn't, that would be a pretty great experience. I also think like there's all sorts of automation things that we can do around best offers that would be fun. For example, I like to wait to turn best offers on. Like, I don't like to list my items with best offers right away. I would prefer to wait a week or two to see if it sells at a full price before turning it on. But I never remember to go back and actually adjust my listings to turn them on. So it'd be great to just have like an automated rule in Flipwise that says, if this item has not sold in 30 days, turn best offers on. It'd be pretty cool to have stuff like that. So
definitely.
Yeah. So yes, Andrew, I think we'll definitely be doing some work with offers in the future. How about this one? Sullivan asks, will Flipwise get an app eventually? You want to take that one, Michael?
Yeah. So I think the short answer there is yes. The longer answer is, the way that, the way we've implemented Flipwise kind of out of the gate is it's implemented as a responsive web application, which means that whether you're on your computer or a tablet or your phone, Flipwise kind of responds to the specific device you're using it on. So it responds to the size of your display, responds to, behaves differently if you're using a physical hardware keyboard versus a touchscreen device. And so that's kind of how it works. And that's kind of, by building Flipwise that way, we're able to kind of like make sure that the greatest number of people can kind of use it. Really, if you have a somewhat modern internet connected device with a web browser on it, you can use Flipwise. Yeah. And so that's how things are set up right now. And then our long-term plan is to kind of use that as our foundation for kind of like kind of progressively enhancing what we have and achieving a more kind of like native app feel. And so you can imagine over time. There's certain things we can do like before, like actually we have an app in the App Store, we'll be layering on things like kind of like, I don't know, like animations, more kind of like animations as you're using Flipwise, like push notifications is another thing we've kind of talked about. There's a lot we can do just in the context of it being a responsive website, again, to kind of get more of those like kind of native app behaviors that people are used to. And then long term, I think you can imagine finding Flipwise in the kind of Apple App Store or the Google Play Store if you're on Android. And again, it would still, we're kind of a small team here, and kind of another benefits of this kind of responsive web app approach is that we can kind of again we're able to get this thing built in a relatively short amount of time and get it usable to the vast majority of people out there who might want to use it, but you can kind of like, you can kind of take that into the native app world without having to kind of like rewrite it from scratch. Like that's not going to be our approach. Our approach is going to be like, it's still going to be kind of a responsive web application, but it's going to have like a native wrapper. And then, kind of within that context, you can kind of find like little like high ROI areas to kind of invest in kind of native UI elements, kind of a common approach is like, you might, you've got your responsive web application. It's got a native app wrapper, and the navigation is implemented using a native kind of UI component. So it's just a little bit faster to kind of navigate around the app. So that's a likely place I think we end up, where it's still the kind of responsive Flipwise web app you're used to, but when you use it and kind of when you download it out of the App Store, it's 90% of what you're used to is still there, but there's kind of just little enhancements here and there to make it feel even more kind of native. So that's kind of like that. We've kind of like architected Flipwise with all that in mind, so we could get something really good out to users really fast. But the idea is that we're going to kind of use that as a foundation to kind of make it even better and better over time. Yeah,
it's going to be nice. I think also just small things like since you're using Flipwise in a browser on a mobile phone, for example, you also just have like the web browser Chrome or the interface around it, and so by even just wrapping it in a native wrapper, you sort of get to lose all of that and have the full screen experience of Flipwise on a mobile phone, which would be nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let's hop to what we're working on now. I think we're about 52 minutes in. It's kind of crazy. So at this point, well, we've been trying to work on a couple of things. We've been trying to work on the ability to add sales data for sales happening outside of eBay. We've been a little bit derailed and distracted with sales tax stuff. That's like one of the most surprising things from my perspective about this whole project is I just didn't understand the complications of sales tax running a global product, global SaaS product. And it turns out it's very complicated. And every state has its own sales tax rules. Every government, international government has their own sales tax rules. And if you have even one customer in various regions of the world, you have to consider sales tax for those. And so it's been an eye-opening experience, and we've had to do a lot of pivoting and reacting to that. But I think most of that's out of the way at this point, and we are now focused on the next sort of big project for Flipwise, which will be the ability to add sales data when sales happen outside of eBay. And I think there's kind of two ways that we're thinking this will work. The first way is that if you can mark just like you can mark something as donated or damaged or delete something in Flipwise, you'll also be able to mark something as sold outside of eBay. And so that's for like an existing listing. So if you have an item listed on eBay and on Facebook Marketplace and it sells on Facebook Marketplace, you'll go back into eBay and mark that as ended so you don't sell it twice. And Flipwise will then know that it is ended and allow you to mark that as sold. You'll be able to say it's sold on Facebook Marketplace, and you can input how much it sold for and any fees. Although I guess if you're selling things in person on Facebook Marketplace, there would be no fees, but you get the point. And the second way would be like, well, I just for something that was never listed on eBay, and so let's say you have an antique booth or a flea market or something, you can just add products directly to Flipwise for the sole purposes of marking them as sold outside of eBay or wherever. And so you'll be able to mark things as sold literally anywhere. So if you're running a flea market, you have your own store, whatever, you'll be able to do that there. And that's very similar to another project that is going to be happening basically at the same time or immediately following, which is adding your unlisted inventory to Flipwise. And so right now when you list something on eBay, it gets ingested into Flipwise so that you can add it, but you can't add stuff directly to Flipwise. And that was a very deliberate decision by us to do it in that way, knowing that we're going to come back and give you the ability to add unlisted inventory. But it's actually way more complex than you would imagine to add unlisted inventory. Like, it's pretty easy to just say like, hey, here's an item that I have, let's put it in my inventory. The difficult part is matching that to that item when it is eventually listed on eBay, because we don't want you to have to enter in twice. Like, that would just be annoying. So we have to figure out a way to automatically connect that unlisted inventory item with its listed counterpart once it is eventually listed. So that's why it's taken some time. That's why it's not something we just sort of like whipped up right away. And so that's our current focus is on those things.
Yeah, on that last one, I think one of the kind of the decisions we made in Flipwise early on is we wanted you to be able to use it without adjusting your existing workflow. Like, we don't force you to come in and click some button in Flipwise in order to kick off the process of listing something on eBay. Like, you should be able to keep using eBay exactly as you're using it today, and then you sign up for Flipwise and it's just magic. And like everything, you keep doing what you're doing, and Flipwise kind of like sees what you're doing and gives you all these valuable insights. And so that's, in order to kind of stick with that kind of like that sort of like high-level product decision, it does introduce this challenge around this kind of matching challenge that Justin just talked through around kind of matching a product that you've added as an unlisted product to the product that you then listed over on eBay. So, but I think we feel like it'll be worth it, once we finally solve that. But I think we're excited about both of these things, right? Like the ability to add unlisted inventory and the ability to kind of manually enter sales on other marketplaces other than eBay. Like, we get questions about those features all the time. Like, probably every day somebody asks about one of those two things. So we're super psyched to get the exciting world of sales tax behind us, and which I'm sure all of our users are excited about as well, and get to these two things. But we're like, we're well into this manually entering sales work, and hopefully that'll be shipped before too long.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. I know that I have my own list of stuff to add to that as well, and so that's the other benefit of having someone developing a product who also uses it a lot is I have my own motivations to get this stuff live. So it's not just our users who want it. It's me who wants it too. And so that helps keep us motivated and moving in the right direction. Not with sales tax though. I don't care about sales tax.
Do you still have didn't you have a pile of stuff in your basement that you're waiting for our bulk lot tool?
No, I was waiting for the donate tool.
The donate tool.
It was a big pile of, and I my wife, Kelly, she kept bugging me to take it to the thrift store and donate. I'm like, I can't. I don't have the ability to mark it as donated. As soon as we had that, though, I went through and marked it all as donated and sent it off to Goodwill. So it's out of the house now.
Sweet.
All right, we should wrap it up. We're at an hour. This was fun. I'm looking forward to doing this again, maybe next week, maybe in a couple weeks. I don't know. But if y'all have any questions for us, leave them down below, and we will talk to you soon.
Adios.